Hello, everyone, and welcome to Beyond Indigo's Pets Facebook Live. Yeah, it's a mouthful. So welcome. I'm Kelly Baltzell, CEO and owner of Beyond Indigo Pets, and today we have Dr. Jeff Thoren back from Gifted Leaders. Hello, Jeff.
Hey, Kelly. Thanks for having me back.
It's awesome. Well, we have a really good topic today considering the time of our lives. And do you want to explain it a little bit, what it is?
Well, we're talking about the dichotomy of being versus doing. And the question then is like, are we human beings or are we human doings? And I have a hunch that we might be emphasizing one over the other.
I have to kind of agree with you. If I was a vetting person, I'd be like, yeah, I can put a 20 down on that one.
Yeah. And it's not like, everyone else's problem. It's like you and I struggle with this very thing, probably on a daily basis.
All the time, because, especially if you're an A+ personality, I'll own it, right?
Yep.
And I love to-do lists. I love writing them out, crossing them off, and there's some sense of, right? And there's some satisfaction. And I honestly, to God, don't sit well. Like, I have too much energy. So sitting and relaxing is something I actually have to work on. It's not something I automatically just go, oh, okay, let's go do that, right? Yeah. I have to say, no. So what is doing and what is being? Let's start there.
Well, I want to pick up on something you just said.
Sure.
There's, it is difficult for many people to just not do anything and rest or relax or reflect or have some time for silence or solitude. And, part of that is cultural because, we are just kind of programmed that it's about accomplishing tangible things. And there's almost a guilt that can come with getting off the treadmill and just taking time for yourself, and so thus a lot of the focus in the veterinary profession on self-care and the importance of that, because we often don't, because there's that external pressure and we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to perform. And so that's the doing side. So you ask about what's the difference. Well, the doing side would be kind of those tangible things that have to do with being productive, being efficient, accomplishing things, rational, being in your head, kind of the rational analysis and just focusing on those kinds of things. Actually, we have a graphic. Maybe we could bring that.
Yeah, let's show that. That's a good graphic. Yeah.
This might help to kind of flesh that out a little bit. And again, I think we may have talked or brushed on this a little bit last time when I was your guest about this metaphor of an iceberg. And when you think about the iceberg, obviously there's what you can see above the surface, which we're equating that with the doing part of life. And again, performance, action, productivity, all those things would be in that category. Below the surface, as we know, there's a mass down there that is a little harder to access, and it's kind of in those murky depths that we would then equate with being, and that's where our values are located. That's where kind of our sense of purpose is located, emotional intelligence, somatic intelligence, mindfulness. I would even put some of the skills of improv in here as far as just being able to adapt and be resilient regardless of what's going on. And all those things kind of come from a deeper, more emotional or even spiritual place. And so again, that's kind of the distinction that we're making here between doing and being. Obviously, the doing is the part that we see. It's easier to get our arms around. The being is a little scarier and sometimes harder to really explore because it's down there in the murky depths beneath the surface.
Well, and I also don't think we get validation either for it in our society. We have so much segregation in our lives that are built into our society today since the Industrial Revolution. That we aren't really given street cred, so to speak, for having that balance. In fact, we're told, don't talk about your belief systems. Don't talk about your inner journeys, because that is just not, work appropriate or things like that, right? Like there's these divisions that get put into place, but we're not divided human beings. We are who we are. right?
Exactly. Yeah. And there's a growing emphasis in kind of the workplace, or at least the people that are looking at organizational design and development, around allowing people to bring their full selves to work and not have kind of that segregated attitude for work is just about doing stuff and using your brain, and then maybe you have time for that other stuff, maybe you don't, but you don't bring it to work for sure.
For sure, we don't do that here at Beyond Indigo. We have kind of a different philosophy here, that because I'm interested in the whole being, because all of you is showing up for work, and if one part of you is off kilter and not in balance, all of you is off kilter and not in balance, and that's not okay with me. I get to make those choices running a company, right? Not everybody gets to make that choice. But I think it's important for A+ personalities, I think you can chime in here, is to figure out how to get that balance. So if that means a schedule for you, that every morning you get up and take a walk, and you leave your electronics at home, and you enjoy nature for just 30 minutes, 40 minutes, right? Then that's what you do, and find a system that works for you. You know?
Yeah, as humans, we all really strive for this idea of wholeness, and that's been something that has been really important to me probably over the last several years, just realizing that it's not just about accomplishment and activity and busyness. That's a whole nother thing. Actually, Trey and I are writing an article right now for Today's Very Business that's around this idea of busyness, but they're closely related. And again, we're rewarded for being busy, and it's almost a badge of honor. When someone says, "Hey, how are you doing?" Well, I'm really busy. It's like that's like that's a sign of success. And so we really humanly want to be whole, and which is about fundamentally just being sufficient, being enough, right? Regardless of what we're doing. There's a piece there about belonging and being connected to others. And then, there's something about dignity and being recognized for the gifts and the different talents that you bring. So we all want that. Again, it's difficult because we're often rewarded for the tangible activity and productivity. And again, in the veterinary space, there's a lot of emphasis on that. So finding balance is the key. And what you said is right. There's ways to do that personally, which might be as simple as going for a 5-minute walk, doing some kind of mindfulness practice. I think we talked about some of those things maybe last time a little bit. Limiting distractions in your life, wherever they may be coming from, and just creating some space, creating some margin where you can just kind of be contemplative and reflective and dig in, kind of explore what's beneath the surface and raise your self-awareness. There's just lots of different ways to do that. Collectively, in businesses, there's lots of opportunities to really honor the whole person too. And you're talking about some of the things that you're doing at Beyond Indigo, and there's really a lot of low-hanging fruit there, which is as simple as check-ins with people in the morning or on emotional, topics. What emotion are you bringing today, and how can we support you in that, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent? Would be just a simple example of ways we can do that. Team building activities that are around, let's use some assessments to figure out what our different values are. What do we value, and how do we honor those things in our life? How can we honor them here in our work? Lots of different things.
So many things. We just got to do them.
Yeah. Therein lies the problem.
Right? We have to give ourselves grace or permission or space or whatever word you want to use. We have to allow that area, that space enough to stop all the hamster on the wheel, to allow other things to come in, and I play around with things all the time because I'm a curious person, and I try different behavioral patterns because I'm just curious. I'm curious about myself. I'm curious how things work, but that's how I manage through life. But some of them are like, what if I don't do laundry this week?
Yeah.
What if I don't? What if I don't spend 3 hours doing laundry this week? What will I do instead with that? And I think I'll be just fine. Like, we have plenty of clothes. It's not like we have 3 pairs of clothes that we're rotating through, right?
Yeah.
And it's little stuff like that you give yourselves some permissions to say, I don't have to do those invisible shoulds that we have all been trained, raised in whatever family we are in. Each family has invisible rules or behavioral patterns. What if we don't just do some of them? What will happen?
I think that's a great exercise, a stop doing exercise. Like, what's on the stop doing list? Okay, laundry's at the top of the list, but what else could be on that
Right.
list? It reminds me of, I think I shared a little bit of my story last time, kind of experiencing burnout firsthand. A bunch of that, getting beyond that involved actually some stop doing kinds of things. And for me, it was, the busyness of, feeling like I needed to do certain things to build a business, external pressures, and then just getting in the habit of doing it. And not, it wasn't necessarily bringing results, but I just did it because I feel like laundry, right? You just do it every week, right? Whether you need to or not. So all those things are really worth evaluating. And what I realized was that all that busyness and activity was actually keeping me from being able to express some core values, which for me are around wholeness, around just being able to be myself and being authentic. And humor is big for me, as you might have experienced. And so when I was on that treadmill, those were the things that I was not bringing to the table anymore. The stuff below the waterline was being sacrificed because I was a slave to just action.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a stop doing type of exploration, what do I need to take off the list so I can create space for that, could be pretty fruitful for all of us. What are the things we're doing that really are not adding value, or they're keeping us busy, but they're keeping us distracted and not really focusing on some things that as humans are incredibly more important.
Exactly. And there's so many of them. And who's going to notice? That was the other thing. If I stop doing this, is anybody going to notice?
Yeah, right.
Right?
Yeah.
Is the invisible police coming after me? I don't know, right? And so I was just like, I started stopping doing stuff. And I'm like, yeah, nobody noticed, you know? And then I got to be lenient on myself and go, okay, this is going to feel different. And you're going to have to live in that feel different space. That's okay too. You might be a little uncomfortable. And then, I don't know if you figured this out too, or in your own life, if this applies, but material stuff. I was recognizing that I was spending a lot of my time maintaining material stuff. That was precious time that I could be using for other things. So I started unloading. Goodwill got big donations. Yeah.
Yes. And a modest tax write-off for you at the end of the year as well. But I think that's a whole nother area to look at, is just, what's the relationship with things, and how does that get in the way of potentially of this whole idea of finding balance? Yeah, that's a great.
So lots of areas, to clear up that space, to stop, to be able to look at underneath the iceberg, to explore those things of who are you, what are you? If you're not the checklist, right? Like, find by external sources, what are those internal sources that make you, so you can find balance?
Right. Yeah. Again, those would be along the lines of values. What are the key values in your life that you want to honor? And to what degree are you able to bring those? Purpose, what kind of things are you uniquely designed? There's a quote I was trying to remember earlier. It's something like, the purpose of life is to find your gift. The meaning of life is to give that gift away to others.
That's cool.
So it's that kind of work, is figuring out what are you uniquely designed to how are you uniquely designed to be, and then there is a doing piece there of, what is kind of your unique design as far as what contribution do you want to make to the world. And so that's an interesting thing to explore. And for, I will say, for a lot of people in our profession, you mentioned earlier, type A's or high achievers, people that wouldn't uncommonly be in the perfectionist category, there's a starting point can often be just a little self-compassion and self-acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's, again, it's that external pressure to perform often makes you feel like you're never quite good enough. So for some, that's the starting point. It's just like getting to the point where you can say, hey, I'm enough. I don't have to kind of check all these boxes off and accomplish more and more and more and more to be worthy and valuable as a human being. Because theoretically, we're valuable whether we accomplish or do anything, right?
Right. Just having a conversation, right? I mean, basically, no, and it's okay to be you. I would add that piece on to it afterwards, like being okay with who you are and that you are enough, but knowing that, no more is needed than that. You don't need somebody's external permission to be you.
Right.
It might be just another way of saying what you just said, but I think a lot of us think we need permission to relax. We need permission to explore. We need permission to become somebody else or find that inner space and time. When in reality, it's all within you to start with.
Mm-hmm. And we can give ourselves permission to do those things, as well as we let off of this, right? Stepping off the treadmill and just being okay, taking a day and doing nothing, accomplishing nothing, doing nothing, not checking anything off the list, not doing laundry for sure.
Not for sure.
and maybe reading a book or reciting poetry or listening to music or going dancing. I mean, it could be any number of things.
Number of things,
that are soul nourishing things.
Yeah, because then you feel like you've put all the marbles back in your bag. As my mom used to say when I was younger, like, your bag's empty of marbles. You've got to take some time and put them back, or the bag will have no marbles.
Yeah, wasn't there something in Peter Pan about lost marbles or something like that?
I don't know.
Probably doesn't connect to this conversation at all, but that just thought crossed my mind. Random thought.
Well, thank you, Jeff, for coming and just having a moment, right? Like, this is just, we created some space, you and I today. We made it happen to have a conversation about space.
Yeah.
And internal work. Because you and I believe deeply about this. Like, we don't talk about it, we live it. Each one of us do. Yeah. And it's mattered. It's made a difference to me. So.
Well, thanks for creating the space. I appreciate you hosting this, this on, your Facebook Live platform. And it's really a pleasure and an honor to be part of it. So thank you for that.
You're so welcome. Have a great rest of your week.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks.